Welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. We are the home of hospitality tech. Whether you're an operator wanting to untangle your tech or a technology provider wanting to join our community, we are the largest hospitality tech growth platform on the planet. The Tech on Toast podcast is brought to you today by Lightspeed. Lightspeed is the EPOS and payments platform that will help you scale your business at the speed of light. Trusted by over 170,000 businesses worldwide, including Big Mama, Mildred's, Mallow and Cubit House. Lightspeed seamlessly connects to an ecosystem of integrated solutions such as OpenTable, Xero, Muse, and many more. Are you ready to take your hospitality business to the next level? With the Lightspeed unified platform, customers can shave seconds off each transaction and increase tips. Need a little support modernizing your tech stack? No problem. Want to scale your business? Get fast funding with Lightspeed Capital. No hidden fees or interest charges. Eligibility criteria and terms and fees apply. Get your demo today at www.lightspeedhq.co.uk/Tech on Toast. Now sit back and enjoy the show. It's the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Sinead Marron, Director of Growth at Alkimii. Sinead, how are you?
I am wonderful today, delighted to be here.
And it's your first podcast?
Very first podcast.
And how long are you over in the UK for? Have you been here a while? Or
I've been here, well, on this trip I'm here about 2 weeks and another 2 weeks to go. Yeah, so I
hope we're treating you well and the weather is...
The weather's mixed, yeah, it's still better than Ireland.
Then again, I was going to say, it's not like you've come from Brazil, is it?
No. However, yesterday on a Zoom with our head office in Skerries, they had beautiful blue skies and I was in the rain, so I thought, this is not fair. I think the rain's following me wherever I go. And
before we get into product, tell us a little bit about you. How have you ended up in my podcast studio?
Oh God, that is a long story, Chris, but I'll try and keep it short. So I suppose, I'm working with the company Alkimii now for 5 years, actually 5 years on the 19th of June.
Congrats.
I've just realised.
Do you get a watch or no?
Oh, we'll get some balloons maybe, some flowers.
Some cakes.
Yeah, hint, yeah. No, about 5 years, but I suppose previous to that I'd been in hospitality for almost 20 years. Loved it and kind of worked my way up through all different heads of department.
So you were in operations?
I was in operations, wow, okay. yeah.
So, I'm high-fiving you across the desk.
Yeah. So then I was GM then for about 7 years kind of in total, deputy GM and then GM in 2 different properties, and absolutely loved it. I suppose it was just in me. I just loved every stage that I kind of went through, and I suppose I believed people believed in me as I went through my stages, and it was just something that I loved to do. But I did get to a time then when I went, I'm just going to take a little break here, and
we all get there.
Did a little bit of traveling, so went over to Asia, and a little bit of everyone was like, "Are you going to find yourself?" I was like, "I don't need to find myself. I just want
I know where I am.
Just want to go for just want to go for a little break." But it was wonderful, and when I came home from that time, I was in that 2 ways. Will I go back into operations, or will I try something new? And I suppose it was an opportunity for me to try something new. And someone told me about Alkimii. And when I first met Ronan McCauley, the owner and founder, and seen the vision that he had for the company, I just remember sitting there going, if I had this product when I was as a GM or in any other role that I've had, oh my God, what a difference it would have made. Because everything, as he was describing it to me, covered a lot of pain points that I went through when I was in operations. So initially I said, I'll try this and I'm going to give it a go.
5 years later.
I'm either going to love it or not. And 5 years later, I absolutely fell in love with it because I'm still very much involved with and have been involved with hospitality across Ireland and the UK. But very much kind of in I suppose I'm here in a growth capacity now for the UK. But my first number of years with Alkimii was very much in the operations and implementation. So I got to actually work with some previous colleagues. But I love the fact that why I'm still here after 5 years is I've been able to see the difference we've made to so many people across Ireland that are in operations. And that gives me such a passion and such a buzz because I always did that when I was in operations, always looked at people and kind of tried to give them tools to, become better and be better versions of themselves. And I suppose that's what I'm able to do now kind of across Ireland and across the UK. So this growth section for me is quite new because I've always been kind of, I suppose I nearly looked at it like I was still in the operations side of Alkimii. Yeah. And it's really seen the difference that we've made, and that's why I said, well, I'm ready for the next challenge. So I'm going to pack my bags and I'm going to go to the UK because I suppose I believe I've seen the difference we've made. I believe in what we do so much that I just said, well, actually, we're in the UK already, but, I want the map of the UK to look the same as the map of Ireland. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see.
I think, number one, I love your accent. Number two, I think it's really interesting when operators get a grip on tech.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that a lot of your competitors or a lot of people in the space, just generally in hospitality tech, long for, having someone who's got that really gritty experience that you have. So when you are talking to operators, you kind of walk in their shoes. I call it the Vietnam theory. You don't know, man, you weren't there.
Yeah.
So like if people haven't, if people haven't walked in your shoes, or if you don't understand what they're going through on a daily basis, it makes a real difference, doesn't it, when you're trying to sell in?
It really does, because even I remember back one time, a person that I met along the way in a particular hotel, and I remember they were quite standoffish, and I was kind of like, oh God, right, okay, I can turn this around. I can, I'm not sure what the issue is here. So I kept trying, and kept trying to make a connection. And about half an hour later, we were actually moving through the hotel, and we just got into a lift, and I mentioned something about when I was in operations, and immediately her shoulders dropped. Like she just let out this sigh to go, oh my God.
You're one of us.
You're one of us. And I said,
Well, it's such a weird industry.
Yeah.
I love it, but it is totally, I've heard that
I totally changed my approach to that and actually went, no, we are tech and we are software, but we have to go in here and just go, we've walked in those shoes, exactly as you said, Chris, and we understand your day to day. You're
a supplier like everyone else who supplies the industry, and I think it's important that those people understand what the industry does on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And on that note, so the product, Alkimii, do you want to kind of give us the kind of your best pitch for what Alkimii does?
Okay, well, I suppose Alkimii is very much broken down into two applications, Alkimii People and Alkimii Property. So when we look at Alkimii People, if we think about it, it's everything back of house for your people, for your employees and for your managers, whether it be HOD level or senior level, but very much around all of your employees. Yep. Alkimii Property then is going to be very much around your kind of more health and safety, your compliance, and how to reduce risk, how to I suppose a part of that product would be incident and accident reporting, but then we look at that and go, how do we reduce that down? So that's what helped us to form Alkimii Property fully, by looking at checklists, maintenance, proactive, reactive, communication even between your teams in terms of, something that's happened with a customer. How do we get that level of communication between our HODs, our employees, much faster and much quicker and more responsive? And that's where we came up with Alkimii Property. Yeah.
I think property is quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's something that a lot of your fellow competitors wouldn't go near or wouldn't deal with, I suppose.
They don't, and I suppose where it really came from, we've always had the kind of, I suppose, as I say, it started off pretty much with the incidents and accident reporting, and has proven for some of our clients to reduce down, their insurance accruals by 50%, pretty much within the first year of using that.
Wow.
And then I suppose we looked at it and said, okay, well, going back into the operation and being on the floor, what is important here? And that is that constant communication, as I've said, between your managers, what has happened, whether it be a guest complaint, whether it be an accident or incident. But then if we look at, if we can get all of that in order and do it on a regular basis and have traceability and visibility of it, then ultimately we should totally be reducing down our incidents and accidents, because I suppose that communication of, even between, the early shift and the late shift, what is that communication? And I always remember kind of saying, and I put this back to property, is that knowledge that you have, whether you're a GM or you're a HOD or a duty manager walking through the door for your shift, being forearmed, like with the information of what has happened before you even get there, without having to go and search through emails.
Yeah, and you also get Chinese whispers rights, because
totally, yeah,
it's much better to have it all in one place. Yeah. I was just at a property in Greece a couple of weeks ago, and nice, lovely 5-star resort type thing. But I watched a few accidents happen. They had some wet weather on one of the days, and it was chaos because those floors become like ice rinks. And I was watching, and because of the sad operator in me was sitting there thinking, how the hell do they manage this? Because it felt very disjointed, and the customers, you could see the frustration in them. So I can see it's a problem you're fixing straight away. And also the ROI you just mentioned then, it's pretty visible quite quick.
It is really, really quick.
And you can measure it either in less accidents or actually less court cases.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, and that's a focus that we have, is very much, whether it be an individual property or a group, that it's that visual of the dashboard to what is actually happening here. And I suppose where you look at it and say, everything can be reactive, and that's fine and that's wonderful. But if we actually study the reactive and look at designing a proper proactive maintenance schedule, even, let's say, that in turn, in my view, when you actually analyse how accidents happen, you know, whether it be the slips, trips and falls or whatever it might be, as we all know, by having that proactive maintenance, that's going to do every you're putting yourself in like 10 steps ahead with making sure that everything's in place to reduce any of that happening. But I suppose I actually bring it back more so to the checklist that we have, and NFC tags on the checklist. Because again, I go back to my operations days of fire exits and what needs to be in place in the event of emergency. And, you know, touch wood, not for a long time, but I have been in that situation myself where you've had to react and you've had to make sure that right fire extinguisher is in place and it's ready to go.
Yeah, I was talking to a group about ladders, weirdly. That ladders have to be on every floor. It's a 7-floor hotel in Russell Square. I think they've got about 600 bedrooms, and they have to have a ladder and 2 ladders on every floor, depending on where it might be. Yeah. And the maintenance guy, we were talking to him about how we were doing leadership training with them, how they work out how to kind of fix that problem. We were giving them ways. But it's crazy, isn't it? It's something as simple as that. And he said, if you've got to go find a ladder and it's on the 3rd floor and you're on the 7th floor and it should be, he said, not only are you wasting time, but it's potential risk to health on life, because depending what the situation arises, you can't find it. So, yeah, and I think in those big properties, things can go wrong very quickly, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons we actually include that in the system as well, was to put in an agenda, tasks and appointments. So from that, again, if we look at the health and safety, the amount of meetings that you can have within hotels where you go in, somebody's taking notes, you know, who's doing what, you have your next meeting and you literally end up, in my experience, going through most of the same points again with what's actually been done and what's not been done. Yeah. And then someone's going off, typing it up, emailing it out. So if I break that down, we said appointments. Anyone that's invited to that meeting, if you have something to bring up and you really want it addressed, you put your own agenda points in. And from that, as you're going through the meeting, you're ticking it off and then saying, right, there's a task created, who's responsible for it? And you put your due date on. So at least even from a health and safety officer's point of view, or your general manager, they can log in then at any given time and see, are we on track before the next meeting? So, and it's actually something we use in Alkimii ourselves all the time. Like, there is no meeting in Alkimii. I love that.
So you actually use your own product?
Oh, for everything.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Because no meeting can happen without an agenda point there, and then we use our we rely on our task.
It sounds silly, doesn't it,
day.
to be surprised that you use your own product, but
a lot of people are. Yeah, a lot of people are. But it's something that we because again, what's for us, we don't want to be going out there teaching people and just saying this is what you should do without us actually. I suppose this is where our developers come into it as well, because they're using our product all the time, and we're trying to teach them. So everything that they design and develop comes from feedback that we get from our customers, and they want to understand how it works and see, and then they can kind of visualize the difference it makes for a customer as well. So even though they're looking at their coding and they're doing their thing, I'm not going to describe what they do, but they do such an amazing job, but they have such interest in understanding the why, and not just that you've asked for this and we'll give you that. It's the what's it going to actually be used for.
That bit is the bit that blew my mind when I was at Deliveract, watching the guys and developers kind of working through feedback from the field and the iterations they went through on a weekly basis, let alone monthly, and the amount of fixes or bugs and fixes they repaired each week. It was crazy. I think it's a unique skill, right, to be able to interpret feedback coming in and not react to one. You know, you've got to be careful you don't, I suppose, react to one issue and look at it on a global scale. Yeah, no,
we do look at it on a global scale, and I suppose we've always done this and we'll continue to do this, where we take feedback from our customers. So, you know, I mentioned earlier about Alkimii People and Alkimii Property. Property came from our customers saying to us, okay, like, okay, this is brilliant and we love this, but it would be great to have even more under that one login. And I know that's becoming a thing now where people are saying everything under one login, but that is truly what people were asking for. Our customers were asking for, and that's what we've focused on.
No, it's mixed, right? I hear a lot of different things, and obviously, luckily, I just sit in the middle of it all. Thank God.
Look at you.
Yeah. But you hear that more and more. I think when I was an operator, I remember I did kind of want one login.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it wasn't mainly me actually. It was more about my team.
Yeah.
It was more about the area managers on the road. It was more about the people who were like kind of reporting into me, kind of like, oh, Chris, I've lost this password, or I can't. I was just like, God, just make their lives easier as it would be. But I'm sure it's better than it was back then. But in terms of accessing different product, but I agree. I actually think sometimes being able to go into, you can't. I don't think you can have everything in one place, but at least 2 or 3 of those.
No, you can't have everything. And I suppose we're not trying to have absolutely everything, but we're trying to be really good at what we do have.
Especially when they relate, right? Especially when they're connected. It makes sense.
It does make sense. And again, I'll say, and it's a word that I use a lot. It's about empowering your people.
Yeah.
And that can happen through our people and product applications that we have. But even with that, I suppose, I'm going to pause there now. I've totally gone blank. Sorry.
That's my fault for saying you did that the other day.
You did. I had something to say there. Sorry.
That's all right.
Empowering your people.
Yeah. We were talking about logins, actually. We were talking about where actually you were saying that you help people. One of your big things that you do is empower people, which is probably by the ease of access, right, to tech.
I know where I was going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, just carry on.
Just totally went out of my
head.
It's
all right. I've broken 3 times. You've only done 1.
So again, it's not just about having that one login. That does empower your people. We want to be very good at what we want to be. Not very good. We want to be excellent at what we do. And as a result of that, the feedback that we're getting from customers is to say, and I agree with this from hospitality. You're in operations, you're out, you're on the floor. So if everything is web-based and solely web-based, then you're having to take notes. You're still back on paper, take your notes, get back to your desktop or laptop, whichever you have, and then start typing it all in. So the key for us over the last couple of years has been mobile. So mobile, and how much can we get onto
crucial,
mobile? Yeah.
Because when I had 48 sites at one point, and I remember you're traveling a lot. So and working on trains in the UK, you forget it. It's just
I've discovered that.
Oh, God,
discovered that, Chris.
I had a lovely Australian man on here who was talking about connectivity in Melbourne, saying you lot are an embarrassment. He said like I spend about an hour just trying to log onto your Wi-Fi, and by the time I'm there, I want to have a break. So yeah, it's true, right? And just being able to, because you want to work while you're in the moment, while you're in front of the problem, you want to log it or talk about it or share it. And what you don't want to do is, as you say, duplicate and start writing stuff down to go on your car or your train, and then transfer it again when you get home, and you should be talking to your kids rather than doing more work.
But exactly that. Like a duty manager at the end of their shift, they've been on the floor with their guests, which to us is because we're always going to be hospitality first. Even as a tech company, it is hospitality first. We want your managers on the floor with your guests. We don't want you sitting looking at Alkimii all day long. And I suppose that's why we very much designed it that you don't have to do that. And everything is at hand, but there and then in the moment. And again, but that does have a direct result on your guests. I think I've said that before, because if you see a problem as you're walking down a corridor, I remember a property that I've worked in previously, and to get from A to B was in heels was quite a long hike. And if you think of spotting something even on that route that might again be broken or whatever it might be, but again that a guest might walk past, by the time you get to where you're going, have you remembered that? Whereas again,
I'm just like that with my car keys, let alone.
I won't. I can't lie. I'm a little bit. Every time I leave the house, I'm like, I have my passport, I have my phone, and I have my cards, and that. Okay, anything else is a bonus. But you know what I mean? Like by the time you get there, you're trying to go. Okay, number one, it might be totally gone out of your head. But as you're going, and now that we do everything on mobile now, as we all know, I can travel from Ireland over to here and not have anything else with me other than the mobile and a charger, hopefully. But there you go. You walk past it, and as you're in operation, you just literally assign that to somebody. This needs to be addressed, and it's instantaneous. That person then will get their notification, and then it's up to them to go and again check it off then when it's done. So, but that All of what I've just described is then visible on web to be able to go in and
from a
analyse
global perspective.
from a global perspective, you know. But it's that reaction that has, because it makes everyone's life easier. For the HOD, you don't want them sitting for half an hour writing up their notes at the end of the day, which is what's always happened.
That was my old life.
Yeah.
And what you've spoken about a lot there is looking after the employee in terms of communication and engagement. And I think through Alkimii, you guys, when I was talking to you earlier, were talking about the fact that actually it's one of your key metrics, right, to be able to keep people communicating and engaged. How does the product, you've alluded to it a bit there, how can the product help people do that?
So there's a mixture of areas that we can do that. So initially we very much started off with chat and newsfeed. So your chat, and I suppose the biggest thing with chat for us was that it's GDPR compliant, because not every, but the majority of hotels that we were going into, no different to when I worked in hotels, we were using WhatsApp as a form of communication. And again, there's no security. There's nothing wrong with WhatsApp for your private life and your personal. But when it comes to work, you want that level of security around it.
I'm hoping most people are moving from that now. It was never...
They are mostly, but you'd still be surprised.
Oh, no, I'm sure.
You'd still be surprised. And I suppose, so we started off with that. And again, we weren't trying to be WhatsApp because it has its own, platform. But what we were really trying to do is give that secure way of communicating between direct messages one-on-one and then creating groups. So proper structured groups that someone has control over that.
Yeah.
So if we create a group for the bar and somebody joins that bar department, they're automatically in it.
That's what I mean. If someone
inclusive.
leaves,
Yeah. And that's the bigger thing. You've just hit the nail on the head, Chris. If somebody leaves, they're out of that group. Whereas what we were being told, people had left 2 or 3 months later and were still getting information about that hotel, and they could be gone to a competitor.
And WhatsApp, like if you're on holiday, you're still getting WhatsApp while you're on holiday, So it just becomes this...
And even that's where we differentiate, because again, you as an employee have the option to basically say, I only want to be notified when I'm on a roster.
Yeah.
And great. And if you don't, you have the choice to turn that on or not. Some people leave it on, which is absolutely fine, but that's their choice.
Yes,
you're giving it back to them.
That's the problem with WhatsApp, because it's a personal use thing that actually the behaviour of it reflects your, while you're at home or when you're, on a day off, you're still getting
constant.
pinged.
But even the little things, I suppose, like the 2 blue ticks.
Yes.
You've read my message, but you haven't come back to me, kind of thing. And I suppose that's something we really promote in Alkimii. It's a 2-way communication tool. So, for example, you need somebody to swap a shift next week, or tomorrow, say.
Yeah.
That's a better example. You need them to swap it tomorrow. Well, if there's 2 blue ticks there, I know that manager potentially will go and change that and go, well, they've seen it.
Yeah.
But if you're at home with your kids or the dogs or whatever it is, you're not in the zone. So you need to have that 2-way communication back. And that's what we're always trying to promote with an Alkimii. Tech is great, but, have the respect for people to have it both ways. And then kind of second to that, newsfeed is very much a platform where we share good news information. And this is so important when it comes to engagement with employees right now, is make them feel part of what's happening around the property. So again, it's going from, maybe celebrating a very successful conference or whatever it might be, that an email goes out, but the emails only go to a very small number of people in a hotel that have an email address. And how is that filtered down into the employees? So this was very important for us. And with the newsfeed, you have the option to celebrate things like moments, so birthdays, work anniversaries, and from that you can see the level of engagement that's coming through. So people can react, they can comment on a comment. These were big things that needed to be done. But we've seen, and we monitor that with an Alkimii to kind of make sure what is the level of engagement like with this. And in the last 3 years, it has literally gone through.
And I was going to say that Meta are obviously closing Workplace. I think there's like 600,000 UK employees on that platform who use it daily to communicate, because obviously it's Facebooky, so they understand it. So that must provide an opportunity, or I suppose an awareness for people like you, so you can kind of say, look, we have this already operating on our platform, we can help.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, like, even if I look at last week, Chris, there was something like 90,000 messages that went through Alkimii, the Alkimii chat.
That was just you looking for your keys.
That was just me looking for my keys. So, how am I getting to the UK again? Yeah. Do I have the passport? But yeah, so like that, but that usage has really grown. So what it's shown for us, and we've monitored this ourselves, is employees want this.
Yeah.
They absolutely want this. And I suppose I was at a conference there in January, And most of the chat at the conference was all about employee engagement, was about turnover within hotels. And this lady did a wonderful talk at it. And one of the things that she said, and a focus in the UK specifically, is we're trying to make hospitality look like more of a career now, like a proper professional career.
Yes.
And you're kind of going, yeah. But that has been lost a little bit in the last couple of years. We can't deny it.
It changed after the pandemic, it did.
It totally did. And there's a huge focus being put back onto that. And I suppose as a result of that, that's where we're saying, like, so from the chat, the newsfeed, we also have things like check-ins, moments and surveys. So we can get that instantaneous feedback from our employees. How are they feeling? Like, are you happy? What training do you need? Let's actually have those more regular conversations. And try and because the turnover, as we all know, in hospitality is extremely high.
Actually, in hotels is better than restaurants, I believe.
Hotels is
a
better.
lot better.
Yeah, but it's still
hard work. Don't get me wrong.
It's still hard work, and I suppose that is something that we're trying to, in everything that we design and we develop, is something that we're trying to assist in reducing that number down and making it go back to, this is a professional career and a really amazing one.
Yeah, I've had a great time.
I've had a wonderful time. I've had a
still
wonderful
doing
time
it
too.
Effectively,
yeah,
aren't we?
But you know, we are still doing it, and you know that gives opportunities for anybody in hospitality to. It's still hospitality at the end of the day, and you know, if we can give the employees that voice back, I think that's one of the biggest things. So if I look at the surveys that we do, so it's an instantaneous, it can be anonymous or it can be an anonymous survey where you literally get instantaneous, how is my whole team feeling here? And from that then, you know, as managers, then that allows us to go off and we have to react to that then, you know, if the numbers are low coming back, then we really have to, it's giving managers then an opportunity to really look within and kind of say, well, what else do we actually need to do here to improve?
Yeah, and what are we sharing? Why aren't people engaging? Yeah.
But what we've seen definitely in some of our customers that have managed to reduce their turnover, we can see that they're posting amazing news feeds. They're sharing that amazing news. They're posting videos of something to celebrate with their employees, like the moments where they celebrate anniversaries, weddings coming up, all of that sort of stuff. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's all about consistency and hard work. It's same as you would do on the floor, right? In terms of ops, that communicating with your team is not easy. You know, if it was, we'd all have cracked it years ago, right? And it's not easy, and it's hard work, and you've got to invest time and energy into it. But you need a platform to do it on, right? Which is going to be reliable and deliver that message.
If you're going to do it right, and you know, it was a focus in my hospitality days that I knew everybody's name. I communicated with as many people on a
Did you have lots of nice pretty
basis.
charts on your walls and stuff? Like
I didn't even have the walls. I was out on I was out on the floor, you know, with my teams and being with them and kind of and from that, and I suppose this is why I'm quite passionate about what Alkimii can do, is I've seen people when I've joined hotels that have been working there for a number of years in the same job, happy out, you know, but one or two little conversations and people have been promoted from those little conversations. So if I look at we've designed what we call check-ins, and everyone's very familiar with the yearly appraisal that we're supposed to have done.
My favourite,
the favourite. And when I've actually trained some of our customers in Ireland on this check-ins model that we have, and I've stood up in front of 30 people and said, so how many people can sit here and say they have an appraisal with their team members in the last year, and where is it on file?
Tell me it was positive.
I'm just going to say a lot of heads dropped. But I suppose it is time and management, and that's why we look at things very much like that, because everyone's time is precious. And I'm not sitting here saying that people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. If they haven't got the tools to do it in an effective and fast way.
100%.
You know, because if you do a yearly appraisal, fill out a form and it goes in a filing cabinet, you know, when are you going to go back to that? Whereas with the check-ins, and this comes from or it was enforced with that conference that I went to when it comes to the level of engagement. We've called it check-in simply because you need to do more regular check-ins with your team. You know, how are you after your first month? How is your first quarter been? What's your 6-month review? But we've designed it so flexible that you can say there can be 2 or 3 questions for your one week or 1 month check-in. It can be a wellness check. A lot of our customers at the moment are reaching out for the award for a great place to work, and they've actually been accredited with it, which is wonderful. And as part of that, they're being I suppose asked to do a bit of a wellness check. So again, that's what we said. Let's call this check-ins. You can check in for multiple different reasons, but it's about let the employee have their voice with their manager. The manager has their voice, and you set your goals and objectives then from there. And again, as a result of that, what I like to say, and something I've always said, is find your shining stars. And I know that might sound a bit cheesy to some people, but it's you've got such wealth with the people that you've spent the time training already. And if you actually nurture them and take them to the next levels, if they want to go there, obviously, not everybody does, versus the time that you spend going through your hiring, retraining. Yeah. So it's trying to, I suppose it's trying to educate, and that's where, yes, I am here from a tech company and that, but when I've worked with any of our customers across Ireland and the UK, it's to try and get that education that if we actually put the time into this, you're going to save all of this time afterwards by new people in and hopefully reducing your turnover.
Find your Sinead, you know.
Well, she's not perfect.
She's still here. I think it's crucial. We had a lady called Rita Gilligan who worked at the Hard Rock, who was the first ever female waitress in the 60s and 70s, sorry. And she stayed on all the way. She's still there now doing one shift, Irish lady as well. Mm-hmm. Still there now doing Rita Day once a month, got an MB of the Queen. And we always used to talk about finding your Ritas. And Rita was just a working class girl, just worked really hard. Everybody loved her because she was so honest about what she did every day. And I think trying to reflect that sometimes in tech is difficult because people think, oh, it's very digital. Tech is an enabler, and you put people behind the tech like you who understand the front line. It becomes very much more alive again, and you use those experiences you have to help people understand how they can really make the product sing for them. And I think it's just sometimes we need to do a bit more of that in what I call our industry, in the hospitality tech industry, just to bring it alive a bit more and put a bit more thought around the people that are going to be using it.
I think so, because ultimately, whether it be tech or you're in operations, if we want to, continue with this, roadmap, let's say, of making this that professional career again, and it is getting there. Like, don't get me wrong, but if we want to really hone this in, and encourage people in schools and third level education that this is a career that you absolutely would love to go into, I think they need to see everything's changed. Do they want to go in and say that, I'm going to go and work somewhere where I have to write notes in an A4 diary, in one location in the hotel, versus I remember I'm meeting someone recently, and I asked them for a pen and a piece of paper. Even though I'm in tech, I'm old school, and I still wanted to just write one little thing down for myself. And they were kind of looking at me. They were roughly around 21, 22, and they were like,
what's a pen?
Pen and a piece of paper for what? And but that is where we're going.
100%. And I think you look at my kids.
If we're not there.
Well, my kids, their handwriting is diabolical, right? Because they just don't write. They write at school, but that's it. They don't write anything at home. Yeah. And now they're using laptops at school. But anyway, look, I mean I think the people side of it is huge, especially with the product you obviously have. But on the business side, I'm guessing you pull a lot of reporting out the back, data. That can help. I suppose it's transparency and a bit of predictability, because I always say consistency leads to predictability. How can you guys help with that before we let you... I'm not going to say send you way back to Ireland, but you're not. You're staying here.
No, I'm staying here for a little bit longer. You can't get rid of me yet. I'll be back and forth. Well, I suppose a number of different ways, and before I even kind of, I suppose, touch on that, initially the Alkimii People product, and I just think it is important to say, we very much did start off as a time and attendance and payroll prediction, and how using that real information, and that's a real thing now at the moment, because we've with the information that we have in the system, there's been almost a 5% increase in payroll, across the board in the last year alone. So when the company was initially set up, it was set up it was initially thought about back in 2008, when Ronan Macaulay, he experience in hospitality, head of IT for Jury's Doyle, but he had his own property kind of local to where he was brought up. But in 2008, and I remember this, and he remembers this. You may remember this, Chris. I'm not going to guess. But we hit recession times, and I suppose it was really important then about payroll. How much was our payroll going to cost versus our revenue coming in every day? That's ultimately where it started out, and it kind of grew and grew from there. But that is still a real problem and a real thing.
Yeah, our
And I
two biggest
suppose
cost centres, right, are people and food.
this is it. And we're literally, I suppose, giving people that minute by minute, really, day-to-day information about what their payroll costs are going to be versus the revenue coming in. Yeah. And I suppose I go back to the empowering of the managers. We're giving them the information every single day to basically keep that under control. So again, all of that then links into a much bigger database, whether you be an independent hotel or a group hotel. But because we have all of that in there, then your reporting side of things, everything is at the touch of a button in terms of reporting. So you're able to, at any day of the week, know exactly where you stand in your week, in your month to date, or your year to date then as well. And I suppose as a result of that, what we've looked at doing, because we're in, over 400 properties across Ireland and the UK, and some more in Europe, we are looking at, I suppose, creating benchmarking. And benchmarking is a big thing in terms of, who signs up for it and what value are they going to get. Working with our current customers, but really communicating with them in terms of, okay, well, are we looking at 5-star resorts? Are we looking at 4-star city centre or kind of rural? And basically using the data that we have in Alkimii to help our customers as well. Now, it's obviously totally up to them whether they want to sign up for it or not. But as part of that, what we have created is called Alkimii Insights. So it's insights into that data that we have in our system to basically be able to say to people, what is the national average, for a sous chef? What is the national average for male versus female, the gender pay gap.
That insight is huge. I mean, I get asked for it on a weekly basis in what we do, constantly.
Yeah, and we have been, and I suppose, but we've put a huge focus on it now in the last couple of months to kind of say, okay, we have so much rich information, and that's it. That's a sentence that I use when I work with HODs on site. Say, use this rich information that we're giving you to perform at your best, in terms of meeting your targets and that. So we're saying now, let's use this rich information for hotels across Ireland and the UK to make those right decisions, to say, am I at the national average, or am I slightly above what I'm paying a sous chef, or I'm saying sous chef, but any particular job title. But if you have that information, so say for example, very quickly, and we looked at this recently, your turnover for a waiter, in the restaurant is at 80%, let's say. And we were able to very quickly go in and say, well, that's the national average. Some people are paying this, and this is where you are. So that was the answer. The answer was basically, they could see that they were under. Yeah,
because you just don't know, do you?
No.
You might have a group. If you haven't got a group, if you're a single site, if you're one property or whatever it might be, you wouldn't have a clue whether you're doing well on one. Obviously, you know if you're doing well, but you'd be able to benchmark against your competitors and your peers, particularly is really useful.
Yeah, and that's it. And I suppose, all confidentially, but you're able to, that information is going to help you make those decisions when you're going out to market for candidates. And again, all of that linking back then to this professional career in hospitality that we want people to be in, because we want to acknowledge them for the work that they're doing. And so Alkimii Insights will be very much part of that, but I suppose leading into, where that's going to go with the whole, dare I say it, the AI journey that's up ahead. We're going to be taking that to the next step then of what we're going to call Ask Alkimii. So ask Alkimii a question, and rather than...
So what is the retention rate for a waiter in this postcode maybe, or something like that?
Exactly. That's where we get to. But even initially, if you think about the time that financial controllers, HR managers have, and especially at group level, independent hotels the same, but group level, the amount of time they have to spend pulling reports together, and I need a specific report and I need it in that way. So there's times we could be asked by 5 or 6 different customers for the same heading of the report, but we want to calculate it in these different ways. And I suppose that's where we're coming into the Ask Alkimii, is we have that information even for yourself as a group of hotels. You can go in and say, and do that comparison between all of your hotels, and again linking that to dashboards from a group perspective, that you're able to see if your hotels are dotted, around the UK or around Ireland. At any given time, somebody can go in and basically look and see what is the performance. And again, the same as we said to the HODs, use that information then to react on it. But in terms of the speed of getting the reports, but the time we're saving. And the more time we can save on these mediocre tasks of pulling these reports together, the more time can be spent with the employees in terms of everything that they need to get them,
100%.
through those promotions.
There's no point having data unless it's transformational, right? And you can action it. And I think that's. I was talking about this with someone else this morning. It's crucial. Look, I mean, we're running out of time. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, I'm ready to keep going.
I know. Literally, I might have to book you out for 2 hours. Look, I mean, we've only just met you guys recently.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is really interesting. I was saying to you earlier on, we have quite a big hotel network within our network, and they'd love to meet you, I'm sure.
Excellent.
If people want to get hold of you, apart from you being on Tech and Toast Marketplace, how can they get hold of you?
Number of different ways. So either by email, Sinead, we like to keep it nice and simple. So
Ask Sinead, there you go.
Ask Sinead at alkimii.com, or get in touch with our head office, which is hello@alkimii.com. So again, we're all about that. We welcome customers to come to us. So it's like, come and say hello to Alkimii. So either our website, www.alkimii.com. And they can reach out through any of the information there. But if they email directly, there's a link to book a meeting. And honestly, at this stage, I'm interested in just in chatting to people.
Understanding the lay of the land, I suppose.
Understanding the lay of the land. What are trying to, very similar to what I've been doing for the last 5 years. What are your pain points? And let me kind of see how I can help you with that, and in turn how I can bring Alkimii to get the most out of it, because it's really important for us that any customers that use Alkimii are getting absolutely 100% out of it. That it's not sitting there kind of going, it'll do its thing in the corner. It needs to be used, but it can be used in a very simple and effective way. And that's really all I want to do, is have discussions with people now and kind of say, like, what can I do to resolve some of your pain points?
Love that. And well, there's plenty of them, so I'm sure you'll be busy. And before I let you go, you're staying down in Brighton, aren't you? Did you say your sister's in Brighton?
I did. I have two sisters actually in Brighton. Yes.
Have you been out there much yet? Have you had a chance to explore?
Not on this trip, but I've been probably coming to Brighton now for about 20 years.
Oh, really? Okay, so you know Brighton.
They've lived here that long, so it's kind of like it is like a second home to me now. So, but I'm on a little extended visit with them, so they're like, "Well, you're back again."
Yeah, please leave.
Yeah. They haven't said it yet, but give it another week.
Well,
or
look,
two.
A warm welcome for all of us at Tech on Toast,
Thank
and
you
obviously
so
the
much.
community who are listening in today. They will, I'm sure they'll all reach out and talk to you. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, we've got the details there. We'll also put them in the body of the post when we put out the podcast. And that's it. Everybody say bye to Sinead. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, and thank you, Chris.